Tetragrammaton.
Got to start with the power chord, right? I don't know who invented the power chord, but you could think of, You Really Got Me from the Kinks, which was pretty heavy, I would think, for its time. Yeah,
sure.
like just that you could put into a heavy metal song or change the notes a little bit and make it darker, and that riff will become pretty fucking heavy. You had the Who that were breaking guitars, blowing stuff on stage, and their sound was massive. I always saw the Who as like a kind of like an example for Led Zeppelin of what a band should, even just the way it was, like a great drummer, virtuoso, amazing bass player, guitar player that wrote the music, produced the records, songwriter. The presence of the vocalists kind of had a similar vibe too. So yeah, you had the 60s bands. Dude, even you could say the Beatles in the song called I Want You, the end of that song where it gets all doomy and
it's like dirge.
It's metal. It gives you the feeling of what Black Sabbath gives you without necessarily the same guitar tones or whatever, but the sound, the music, the darkness. So there were things that were happening before Black Sabbath, before Deep Purple, before Led Zeppelin.
Was In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida before?
I'm not sure what year that was, but those are all considered psychedelic.
Yeah, but it's heavy.
It's heavy, but the heavy stuff came from the psychedelic, like that band High Tide,
The British band.
Yeah, that was heavy, but that was before Sabbath. That was during the late 60s psychedelic era. And I think psychedelic music was moving into this direction.
It was certainly one of the flavors, because there was also like a folk flavor. It's like Led Zeppelin has really heavy songs, and then they have really folky songs.
Yeah.
And it feels like they didn't invent that. That was kind of what was going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, same with Sabbath. Sabbath, I think, took things to a direction that, like, sometimes I think even a riff from a band can spark a whole genre. Just that tiny moment.
Do you want to play an example of a riff that inspires people?
Well, how about this one from Cream? Pretty dark.
And now, baby, get into my big black car. And now, baby, get into my big black car.
It's like heavy metal blues.
I wanna just show you what my politics are. I'm a political man, and I practice what I preach. I'm a political man, and I practice what I preach.
This could be a Sabbath song.
Oh, sure.
So don't deny me, baby, not while you're in my reach. I support the left, though I'm leaning to the right.
Of the American bluesmen who created the genre, nothing sounded like that. Like it definitely took it to a new extreme.
And there was other things going on. Maybe they were inspired by somebody else. I don't know. It's always tough to tell. But then you got Sabbath at some point. You got
You feel like Sabbath is like the real beginning of metal?
Yeah, I kind of do. More to me than Led Zeppelin, because Led Zeppelin had moments of heaviness. Their sound was heavy. The energy of harder rock was there. But Sabbath brought the doom,
Also
the
lyrically,
lyrics,
yeah, Sabbath, the trip was
the
dark.
name of the band. It's Black Sabbath. Just they brought in a feeling, a vibe that to me was the sound of heavy metal. The blues and the jazz was still there, but that came in between the heavy riffs. And the riffs with Sabbath weren't like, for example, we mentioned the band High Tide, but probably if you listen to the rest of their songs, that was probably the only song
That was heavy.
that was heavy.
Yeah.
Sabbath had the whole album was that vibe, and then the next album was that vibe, and the next album, and it just, that vibe continued. It became a character of the sound of Sabbath.
It seems true of heavy metal bands in general. That was the sound of those bands. They may have one ballad,
Yeah.
but it was the exception, not the rule. The rule was metal.
Yeah, and that's what I mean by like one song or one riff can take a band, and someone who is listening to that would be like, I want to write more songs that are like this.
Yeah. So like the Kinks' Have You Really Got Me, but that's not what all the Kinks songs sound
No.
like.
No. So it's spark. Those are the sparks.
Should we listen to You Really Got Me?
Sure. It's heavy as fuck.
And for its time, it was probably shocking.
Yeah. And then like to tear the speaker to get the distortion, it's probably one of the first distorted guitar songs. The riff makes you do what heavy metal makes you do, which is like make a fist or like
Or air guitar.
yeah, just something that makes your face get like
Yeah, you want to participate.
I think we should play that High Tide song.
Let's hear it.
Once again, this is before Black Sabbath. Heavy as fuck.
Crazy. Like dirgy sludge.
Yeah, but once he starts singing, it gets dark.
Of your expedition to the mill.
That's doom, for sure. Well, there's a whole genre called doom metal,
And it sounds like this.
and it's like this vibe.
Turn around, see me crying. Smell of burning flesh.
Smell of burning flesh, like the lyrics.
Metal.
Yeah.
Must you stare, crying slowly to the bone when you're gone? Who'll be crying?
But this was considered psychedelic music. There's no name heavy metal.
No.
And the name heavy metal came from the Steppenwolf song,
Oh, Heavy Metal Thunder.
Heavy Metal Thunder. Just kind of like, rock and roll came from like Rock Around the Clock. And there was a bunch of songs at one point in the late 40s, early 50s that started using the word rock. And that became the reason why people called it rock and roll. And I would say even with other genres, as we'll get into as we're going, were kind of named by songs or bands like death metal, black metal, these kinds of things. So as things start getting more extreme, you know, Sabbath, the song Black Sabbath, really heavy, slow, doomy. But this song, Symptom of the Universe, to me was aggressive. Like you can mosh pit to this song, and there were no mosh pits yet. But this riff is aggressive. Like you can fucking bang your head to this shit.
Take me through the centuries to supersonic years. Electrifying enemy is drowning in his tears. All I have to give you is a love that never dies. The symptom of the universe is written in your eyes. Mother Moon, she's calling me back to her silver womb. Father of creation, take
This takes things to another level of heaviness.
unicorn is waiting in the skies. A symptom of the universe, a love that never dies.
Led Zeppelin and all that other stuff, sure, it was heavy, but this is heavy metal.
Yeah. This is less bluesy.
This song goes into a section that starts getting all jammy and bongos and stuff like that.
More like machine-like.
Very extreme metal for early 70s.
There's no rock and roll in it.
No. Maybe the swing,
Maybe.
the backbeat, you know, but
Maybe.
A symptom of the universe, a love that
I mean, listen to how he sings.
That's a big part of it all. Like Ozzy's voice maybe is the archetype heavy metal voice.
Yeah. The thing is, nobody else sounded like him. It's just the aggression. I think other people came and did aggression in their own style, but I mean, you have to, yeah, of course it has to be. It's a starting point. Like it gets more. And now here it turns into I mean, my band does stuff like that.
Yeah.
Where we go,
Creation, come and step inside my dreams. In your eyes, I see no sadness.
yeah, I mean,
It's also really experimental. You know,
Yeah.
the way the parts go together is not like regular song structure. It's much more free.
there was like this jazzy element to some Black Sabbath parts in Bill Ward's drumming.
We'll find happiness together.
There was a looseness to it at some point. It wasn't just all riffs. You'd go into these sections where, like this one, this is not heavy metal. This goes back to the 60s in a way.
So much of today's life happens on the web. Squarespace is your home base for building your dream presence in an online world. Designing a website is easy, using one of Squarespace's best-in-class templates. With the built-in style kit, you can change fonts, imagery, margins, and menus, so your design will be perfectly tailored to your needs. Discover unbreakable creativity with Fluid Engine, a highly intuitive drag and drop editor. No coding or technical experience is required. Understand your site's performance with in-depth website analytics tools. Squarespace has everything you need to succeed online. Create a blog, monetize a newsletter, make a marketing portfolio, launch an online store. The Squarespace app helps you run your business from anywhere. Track inventory and connect with customers while you're on the go. Whether you're just starting out or already managing a successful brand, Squarespace makes it easy to create and customize a beautiful website. Visit squarespace.com/Tetra and get started today.
Yeah, you had Deep Purple, but you also had other bands like we were talking about, like Budgie. They were doing a heavy sound,
Same time as Black Sabbath.
early 70s. I mean, yeah, you could say. Here's a song that Metallica later covered from them. Metallica actually covered a couple of Budgie songs.
Sounds like Metallica,
They covered this.
but stylistically,
Yeah.
like the original songs sound like this too.
Yeah.
Especially like early first album,
Yeah.
you know.
Look inside and you will see the words I can't think deep inside my brain.
Ozzy-esque vocals.
Yeah.
My words is driving me insane. Yeah, yeah. Raymond Black is on my track. He showed me how to neutralize the night. Showed to me in surgery the art of fighting words to come.
So yeah, there was stuff like this. Bands that are kind of like unsung heroes at the time, like you know, Zeppelin, Sabbath, Deep Purple. They get a lot of the glory and they get a lot of the attention, but there were other bands. So, you know, you had all the early 70s stuff. You know, here's Deep Purple, Fireball. double bass, which also became something later on in heavy metal. All that. As much as Ozzy was an influence, Ian Gillan, a lot of people started doing that towards the late 70s, early 80s.
Also, Ian Gillan and Black Sabbath was great too.
Yeah, Born Again. Some people don't like that record, but I love it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I love that record. And I love Sabbath with Dio as well.
Dio is really different than the others. To me, it turns into more like
Distinctive.
mythical.
Well, his lyrics, his vibe. There's another dude that isn't from England that probably should be mentioned, or a band. Have you ever heard of Sir Lord Baltimore?
I've heard his name, but I never listened to music.
They kind of get a little credit for being heavy before there was heavy.
It's heavy.
From the US, though, from the East Coast.
It's groovier than pretty much everything else we listen to.
Yeah, it's well, they're from the US. You know, there's probably a difference in influences, and you know, you sometimes hear when a band is from a certain place, like you hear the place, you hear that there's a difference in sound. The LA glam sound compared to what the Seattle sound was. Like you would hear different genres come out of different parts of the world, and you would hear that part of the world in that genre, you know?
I don't think any of the bands that we've listened to yet, when they formed as heavy metal bands.
There was no word.
There was no
heavy
such thing yet.
Yeah, I mean, some people call my band nu metal, but I remember when we were doing it, there was no such thing as that. I mean, I don't really consider us nu metal. I think we came out of that genre. I think it was just the time we were around. I think there's things about our music that might be there, but when it's happening, I'm sure the bands in Seattle weren't calling themselves grunge.
No.
It's the press.
Happens after, yeah.
The press has to put a label on it in some way. So when did heavy metal start? I don't know. I wasn't around at this time. We're gonna move into a direction where I was actually alive. I wasn't alive yet during all this stuff. You got to mention Kiss. Yeah, rock and roll all night, party every day, but the energy, the look, Spikes, Black and Silver, the theatrics, because theatrics is a part of a lot of metal as well.
What would be a Kiss song that would be representative of their metal side?
I always thought Parasite was kind of heavy.
Let's hear that.
It's the image of the demon, the fire breathing, the blood. That was huge to the kids that grew up with that and then started bands. It was huge for me. I mean, I was 3 or 4 years old when I first saw Kiss. It scared the shit out of me.
But you liked it.
But I was just obsessed with it. I couldn't stop looking at it. Never heard a song yet, even at that point. I just had
Just the image.
Just the image, just seeing them. Maybe Kiss's music wasn't as heavy as what Black Sabbath was doing, but Black Sabbath didn't look like Kiss.
Kiss's image with Black Sabbath's music together.
Matched.
Yeah.
Matched.
And that's what brought forth the next wave of heavy metal.
Which people call the new wave of British heavy metal, which started happening mid to late 70s into the 80s.
What bands would those be, do you know?
Well, you could start with bands like UFO, but they were still kind of in the mid 70s, you could say. Then Judas Priest.
Did Judas Priest start in the 70s? I think so.
Judas Priest was pretty early on, but then their changes happened through their sound in the early days. It started becoming the blues and the jazzy elements that the earlier bands had. These bands kind of didn't have that. A band like UFO had a great guitar player. Their early couple records were kind of more psychedelic, but then you get into, say, a song like this one. Hear that gallopy kind of thing. There's a little Led Zeppelin in that. That gallopy thing became a very Iron Maiden thing. So bands like this, and I'm gonna give the Scorpions some love.
That's the way it goes. Frightening thoughts, once been taught, and now it shows.
heavy metal kind of wave. A song like The Sails of Charon. So those are all English bands we were talking about, but these guys came from Germany.
Scorpions had really metal album covers. Yeah, if you would play this, I wouldn't be surprised. Wow,
I love the Scorpions.
I can see.
Oh, you hear it in my info?
Yeah, but I never heard them before. It's like, it's very interesting.
Uli Roth, amazing guitar player.
I didn't know it was this original. Has like an operatic vibe vocally.
Yeah, and kind of Arabic kind of guitar lines and stuff. So their sound kind of changed as it went on into the 80s. It became a little bit more poppy. They're known for like their rock ballads, which I love rock ballads, and Scorpions did some of the best rock ballads.
Mm-hmm.
You know, bands like Thin Lizzy. Heavy as hell.
A strange kind of magic, all in voodoo. You want that woman? Yes, you do. Believe me, baby, I know it's true. Come on, sugar, let me give it to you.
This dual guitar thing they did,
The harmonies.
very influential with bands to come like Judas Priest, Iron Maiden. They did these dual guitar solos. Thin Lizzy, I think, was one of the first.
Come on, sugar, I lose control. I want your body, not your soul. Come on, baby, take my cherry roll.
Still not metal. None of these bands I don't think we would have called metal yet.
I don't think they would have called themselves metal.
Exactly.
But the kids that were listening to them, or the teenagers that were listening to them that were about to be 18, 19, 20 years old and start bands
The
themselves.
next set of bands.
Yeah. Going into the late 70s, new wave of British heavy metal, bands like Judas Priest, you would say, were starting to take the blues out, and then the imagery as well. Judas Priest also, I think, had a lot to do with the look of metal, with the spikes and the stuff.
So
Which
Kiss did it first, but they kind of made it their trip, and they weren't wearing makeup. They weren't playing monsters. They were playing themselves.
Yeah.
But they dressed like that.
Yeah, and a lot of that spike and stuff came out of the BDSM kind of imagery, and that's kind of where that came from. So Kiss and Judas Priest, I would say, had a lot to do with that heavy metal, spikes, black leather towards the late 70s, early 80s. And here's a Judas Priest song called Hell Bent for Leather.
Stranglehold again.
Hey, Ted Nugent had probably something to do with this too.
Yeah, seek him on the highway. Never known that he'll appear. Overweight and just taken over. Hear the roar as they sense the fear.
Double kick.
Echo the steel and the flash of light. Screams from a streak of fire as he strikes. Hell-bent for leather. Hell-bent for leather.
There's an emotion that heavy metal gives you, which is that fist in the air, makes your face change into mean, grim face. It does to me, at least. I can't help myself sometimes.
Crash one by one to the ground. Hell-bent for leather. Hell-bent for leather. There's many who tried to prove that they're faster, but they didn't last and they died as they
Are they the first band that we've listened to that had two guitar players?
Then Lizzy did.
That's definitely a difference.
Yeah. Dual guitar playing, dual solos.
Yeah, trading off solos.
Trading off became a thing.
LMNT, Element Electrolytes. Have you ever felt dehydrated after an intense workout or a long day in the sun? Do you want to maximize your endurance and feel your best? Add Element Electrolytes to your daily routine. Perform better and sleep deeper. Improve your cognitive function. Experience an increase in steady energy with fewer headaches and fewer muscle cramps. Element Electrolytes. Drink it in the sauna. Refreshing flavors include grapefruit, citrus, watermelon, and chocolate salt. Formulated with the perfect balance of sodium, potassium, and magnesium to keep you hydrated and energized throughout the day. These minerals help conduct the electricity that powers your nervous system so you can perform at your very best. Element Electrolytes are sugar-free, keto-friendly, and great tasting. Minerals are the stuff of life. So visit drinklmnt.com/tetra and stay salty with Element Electrolytes. LMNT.
So we're at the new wave of British heavy metal, late 70s, early 80s. I start remembering at this time of my life, remembering the older kids at my school when I was elementary school, the shirts they used to wear. It was just all like, wow to me, man.
Like black t-shirts with bands on them?
Band shirts at the time, Judas Priest.
Yeah.
Iron Maiden, Ozzy. Ozzy had separated from Black Sabbath at that point. I mean, early Ozzy solo stuff, you can't deny. Randy Rhoads guitar playing. I remember going to the record store with my mom and seeing the album cover for Speak of the Devil, which is a live album. But it's Ozzy, and he has his mouth open. He has this shit in his fucking mouth. I don't know, it's like jelly or something. But at the time, it was like, oh, Ozzy used to bite heads off bats and all that stuff. So you would think, oh, is that the head of the bat? In my head as a kid. And I don't know, man, as a kid, I was really young, man. I was like 5 years old, but I was like really into this shit. Like to the point where my mom should have maybe been concerned, but I was just really, really into this shit. And so we're also getting to the point where people are starting to accuse these bands of being devil worshippers.
Oh, yeah.
Which was also something that was appealing to me as a 5-year-old. But I'm sure as like kids that were 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, whatever, I'm sure that was also something that was
But do you think
dangerous.
it was about the danger of it? It wasn't about actually worshiping the devil.
No.
It was more like it was this scary thing.
Taboo.
Yeah, and it embraced the dark side that everybody has some aspect of in them. It wasn't hiding it away. It was celebrating the dark side.
And you were like, are they? Were they? There's something like kind of, how wrestling has kayfabe? There's something kind of kayfabe.
Heavy metal and pro wrestling kind of work in the same way, where there's definitely a theatrical element to heavy metal.
Yeah. Like, the Kiss, the Demon. What is this guy really? He lives like this? Is this really his life? Does he walk around the street like this? We didn't have the internet back then. We didn't have social media where everybody sees the person's life and what they are off stage. And, in my head, Ozzy was like this, wow, dude, this guy was like not even from this planet.
The fantasy aspect of it appealed to you. It's
did.
almost like they're cartoon characters.
Yeah. Like I imagined what they were like this person is really like this all the time, or is this, I never even thought about like, oh, they're not like this. I was very young. So in my head, they were a fucking cartoon. I was still watching cartoons at this time in my life. I would take my mom to the record store and the band started playing into the Satanic thing. And Iron Maiden had Eddie, the mascot. And it was always like these evil album covers.
It was like a horror movie. Eddie would be like a horror movie character.
Kind of, yeah. But I always wanted to get those albums, but I knew if I took those albums to my mom, she wouldn't buy them for me. So I would like try to go to this safer, like, Def Leppard, Pyromania. It didn't have that on there. It had a building burning. But I had my way of getting those albums to me through like an older cousin or whatever. They would record them on a cassette that didn't have the album cover. So I'd still get to listen to like Dio, Holy Diver, because the album cover for that is like the devil has this priest in the chains and, so there's two singers in Iron Maiden, Paul Di'Anno and Bruce Dickinson.
How long was Paul Di'Anno?
Just two albums.
First two albums.
First two albums. And I was going to play a song from those records because if we're talking about the evolution and the new wave of British metal, this was the beginning of it. Yeah, Judas Priest, but early Iron Maiden, I would consider, and later Iron Maiden, but it wasn't the new wave after that. This was kind of the new wave coming.
So the first singer is more like in line with the Judas Priest era of new metal.
Not necessarily. I'll let you hear it.
Play it.
I'll play Killers, which is the title track off their second album. That Gallop is signature to Iron Maiden sound.
You walk through the subway. A footstep behind you, he landed prepared for attack. Scream for mercy. He laughs as he's watching you bleed. Killer behind you. His bloodlusted father, his knee.
Two guitar players as well?
Yes. Actually, now they have 3, but
My innocent victims are slaughtered with wrath and despise. A mocking religion of hatred that burns in the night. I have no one about to destroy all this greed. A place inside me, compelling to satisfy me.
dual guitar playing. And then the bass playing is very specific to Iron Maiden as well. I mean, Steve Harris is pretty much like the main writer in the band.
The bass player.
Yeah. What are you not hearing though? Blues.
No blues. No blues, no rock.
Nope.
It feels almost more a little related to like classical music.
Yes, it starts
The
going more into
drama
that.
of like Wagner, you know?
Yeah.
Solo's a little bluesy. But that's what guitar players did at that time. But the riffs are not bluesy at all. And there's nothing about the groove that's
No.
bluesy. It's very Germanic.
Germanic.
Yeah.
I'm playing this era of Iron Maiden because this was very raw. This was their beginning. It was just a dirtier version of Iron Maiden.
Still late 70s.
This starts getting into the early 80s. Here's another song from Iron Maiden called Phantom of the Opera. This is the album before Killers. This is the first Iron Maiden record, self-titled. It's amazing. Undeniable. So influential. Nobody was really doing this. This was as heavy, I think, as it got at this point of metal in the 80s.
And it's very straight. It's not psychedelic.
No, there's none of that. There's no blues,
No.
no psychedelic. It's aggressive, but very musical. I learned how to play my guitar playing these songs. In my room, just trying to learn them, you know?
And would you play along?
Yeah. Another thing about Iron Maiden, different parts, long songs. This one is like a 7-minute song. Wow. And it goes from part to part, but it keeps you interested. It's music that should be sat down and listened to.
It's not a pop song. You don't dance to it.
Well,
You could, but
going,
it's not.
you know, heavy metal has its dances too, man. Mosh pit, headbanging. That's the heavy metal dance. Probably headbanging before the, because I think the mosh pit came from hardcore and punk. But just banging your head is the feeling you get when you're feeling this heavy emotion. It feels right. A lot of things are happening all at the same time that are making things what they are a year later, 2 years later. While all this is happening with the new wave of British heavy metal bands, you have
Punk rock.
and I think it's somewhat meshing together somewhere in the late 70s.
Yeah, because the kids
and
probably listen to both of those. I know I did. I listened to punk rock and heavy metal at the same time. And then when you started hearing, like, probably Metallica was one of the first where it felt like this was different than what came before it.
I mean, you would Motorhead.
Oh, Motorhead's in a class by themselves.
Yeah.
I love Motorhead.
So
I never thought of them as a descendant of punk rock, though. The punks loved Motorhead,
yeah.
but it felt like they were Motorhead in spite of what anyone else was doing.
Yeah, it was really aggressive rock and roll in a way.
Yeah, like hard biker rock.
Yeah, and let's be loud and let's be fast. Here's another band that Metallica covered called Diamond Head. You know, Metallica is a very influential band, obviously, but these are bands that influenced Metallica. Just like we're talking about bands that might have influenced Black Sabbath, these are bands that probably influenced Metallica and Slayer, you know, all the early thrash stuff, but there was no thrash yet. So this is Am I Evil? Metallica made famous. A lot of people didn't even know that it was a cover until, you know, they, like, this is a band called Diamond Head.
And this rhythm goes back to Jeff Beck.
Yeah.
In the break between the two heavy parts of the song, there's a tapping guitar part.
Yeah.
Did Eddie Van Halen invent that, or were other people already doing it?
Other people did it before Eddie Van Halen, but Eddie Van Halen made it his thing.
No one had done it like he had done it.
Nobody had
before.
done
I
it
see.
like he had done it. You know, and once again, guitar players, Randy Rhoads, Eddie Van Halen, Yngwie Malmsteen, these guys all shaped how heavy metal guitar players, you know, before there was Jimmy Page and there was all those dudes from, you know,
more rooted in the blues,
rooted in
really.
the blues. These guys were more rooted in like neoclassical. That kind of also pushed the blues a little bit out of the guitar soloing, because we just heard the early Iron Maiden stuff. But as you go into deeper Iron Maiden, you'll hear less of that bluesy stuff, and it gets to be a little bit more minors and neoclassical types of vibes. So singers, influential, guitar players that were influential, drummers who played more aggressively as time went on, double kicks started coming into the situation more. I'd say faster double kicks started probably coming into the situation in the early to mid 80s with Slayer, you know.
But that was really different than what like John Bonham or Keith Moon were doing, who were incredible at what they did.
Yeah.
But this was a different kind of great new drumming.
Those dudes were still, you could hear the jazz, you could hear, which later on will come back in metal in some way, jazz fusion drumming. But in the early 80s, I would say it was just this stiff kind of heavy beat, solid, keep things solid.
In the 80s was also when drum machines were getting popular.
Yeah.
Also when disco was kind of in the air. So like the idea of the heavy straight beat was kind of everywhere from drum machines and from disco.
Yeah.
Metal doesn't sound like disco, but it is as hypnotic, straight.
It's not loose.
Yeah, it's not like improvisational.
Yeah. Here's another band I really like. I like this song. It's a band called Holocaust. The song's called Death or Glory. I just feel like
around when?
Same early 80s kind of time. You could say influenced heavier bands to come, but wasn't necessarily that just yet. Fucking heavy. For the early 80s, it's made you bang your head.
In a world of artificial highs and harsh stimulants, there is something different, something clean, something precise. Athletic nicotine. Not the primitive products found behind convenience store counters. Not the aggressive buzz that leaves you jittery, but a careful calibration of clean energy and focused clarity. Athletic nicotine. The lowest dose tobacco-free nicotine available. Made entirely in the USA. No artificial sweetener, just pure, purposeful elevation. Athletic nicotine is a performance nootropic. Athletic nicotine is a tool for shifting mindsets. Athletic nicotine is a partner in pursuit of excellence. Slow release, low dose, gradual lift, sustained energy, soft landing, inspired results. Athletic nicotine, more focus, less static. Athletic nicotine, more clarity, less noise. Athletic nicotine, more accuracy, less anxiety. Athletic nicotine, from top athletes pushing their limits to artists pursuing their vision. Athletic nicotine offers the lift you've been looking for. Learn more at athleticnicotine.com/tetra and experience next level performance with Athletic Nicotine.
Warning, this product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical.
When you were a kid, did the other kids in your school all listen to heavy metal, or was it unusual music?
Some older kids I would see that weren't my friends, I would just see that they wore these shirts and stuff like that. My surrounding people, like my cousins that were like older cousins of mine, they hated heavy metal. I didn't really have anybody that was, I don't know what it is about this music that was just, I was just drawn to it. What sparked it was just, I walked into a distant older cousins, people that aren't really like that closely related to me, went to their house and they were teenagers. I was 3 or 4 years old, opened the door and I saw Kiss all over their walls. As I got older, it was just something, you know, my mom would go to the grocery store and I would be at the magazine stand and I would be looking at all the heavy metal magazines and not really reading them, just looking at the pictures, you know. The funny thing is she'd always say, as long as it doesn't influence you too much. Right?
It seems like it influenced you just right.
Yeah, right. I mean,
Worked out.
you know, she's happy now. But look, I'm into a lot of different kinds of music.
course.
You know that. You and I always exchange, you know, send each other stuff. It's
crazy
usually
stuff.
psychedelic
Yeah.
music or world music, or I mean, it's all over the board.
Yeah.
Just like you, I have like a pretty broad taste, but heavy metal was my first spark, my first love, my first thing that put me in my direction. You could say my roots.
And you'd play along with those records to
Well,
get started
Growing
playing.
up, yeah. Even though there was, I could say I love disco at the same time that I love this stuff too. Obviously, if you listen to my band, you hear more than heavy metal.
For sure.
And that's why some people will be like, well, why is Daron talking about like extreme metal? Because he's not in an extreme metal band. But I grew up with this kind of music. I grew up with extreme metal. By the time I formed my own band, I wanted to do something original. I don't want to copy the bands
Of
that,
course.
you know, came before him, but I was very influenced by,
Yeah. Can't help but be.
yeah, everything that we're playing and stuff we haven't played yet are all things that someone as a fan of heavy metal, we're talking about like the evolution of heavy metal, but it was also my evolution with heavy metal at the time that it was happening.
Yeah. You grew up with this music.
So get to some of the stuff that starts getting a little bit heavier in the early 80s, which is Merciful Fate. I realize that King Diamond is not for everybody because there are even metalheads. They're like, I don't know, I can't get into it. I can't get into the voice, whatever. I love King Diamond.
Yeah.
I love Merciful Fate.
Yes.
Black Funeral.
Yes,
heavy as shit for that time. I love this right now. I'm playing King Diamond on Tetragrammaton.
Tell me the story of Merciful Fate. What do you know about them?
They're from Denmark, I think. I don't know much about the history, about like why he started singing like that. I think Ian Gillan was kind of a influence on him, but he just like did Ian Gillan the whole time.
Maybe Dio too a little bit.
Maybe. They were around in the late 70s, but kind of this album, and they have a few albums, but like the two classic ones are the first two.
And then King Diamond went solo.
King Diamond went solo. Merciful Fate has more of like a raw sound. It's kind of like if you compare early Iron Maiden to later Iron Maiden. It became a little bit more polished. Merciful Fate has a little bit more of that raw late 70s, early 80s production sound, the riffs.
Mm-hmm.
King Diamond stuff became, I'd say you could say, even more theatrical. The whole album had a theme, like the whole album was like a story. But his style, and I get it, some people don't get it, but it's signature though. He goes from high to and it's just kind of like, what made him, like, I don't know, how did he come up with singing like this? It's very unique. There is nobody before him or after him. It's just him that does this with the different voices and the different harmonies and the over the top high pitch thing. And then the makeup. Like in Merciful Fate, there was like 5 dudes. The rest of them just looked like regular heavy metal dudes. And then there was him with the makeup. And going back to Satanic kayfabe,
Yes.
the other people you were kind of like, maybe, maybe not. But this guy kind of convinced you that he was. And the way he talked and the way he explained it in his interviews and stuff like that made you think, oh, this guy's really a devil worshiper. This guy's really satanic, which gave him this extra street cred kind of credibility that made it convincing. And I think he has those beliefs to some
Have no idea.
degree.
It always sounded to me like a theater kid doing heavy metal like as an act. That's what sort of turned me off about it. It was theatrical to the point of parody.
If I remember correctly, I probably didn't like it the first time I heard it, which was not Merciful Fate for me. It was King Diamond solo.
Mhm.
But then I didn't like Slayer the first time I heard it.
Wow.
Because remember, I'm growing up with this kind of vocal.
Yes.
Iron Maiden, Dio, Ozzy Osbourne kind of vocal. When I first heard the vocals in Slayer, it was something that was brand new to me. But then I gave it another shot and it became like my favorite band.
When it's so different, the first reaction is it's not for me. Most of all my favorite music I didn't like when I first heard it.
Yeah.
It's too much.
Yeah.
But then when you realize, I remember laughing at the Ramones when I heard it. It was ridiculous. Why would anybody play that fast?
It's like tasting a food for the first
You
time.
might not have any point of reference.
Yeah, you don't have any reference and it's kind of like you don't recognize it. But then you try it again and it's like for that next month you're eating that food and it becomes your favorite food.
Yeah. Okay, what would be a good example of King Diamond as a solo artist?
For me, I love the album Them.
Mhm. How old were you think, when it came out?
Them, 1988, I was 13 years old. song is called Welcome Home. I mean, listen to how many voices he does.
Let me help you out of the chair. The grandma. Let me touch you. Let me feel.
This was kind of a big song. We used to come on Headbangers Ball and stuff.
Really?
Yeah. This was, I'd say, the breakthrough song for his solo career. There was an album before this, or two, solo. So, you know, there's bands around this time. Remember a band called Metal Church? People that were metalheads at that time were into Metal Church. Metal Church fucking was relevant. It's a band that's not talked about as much now, but at the time, we would look forward to the new Metal Church album, you know, as young metalheads. This song's called Metal Church, self-titled, off the first album.
You hear the Black Sabbath
Yeah.
influence.
You hear the Black Sabbath, but you don't hear no blues. You don't hear no jazz. Like up until this, Judas Priest, Maiden, all that stuff was the heavy stuff. Now we're getting into the mid-'80s. And this was happening around the same time as Slayer and Metallica.
Was there a name for this genre?
Some people would call it power metal.
Power metal. It definitely sounds like an escalation on what came before it.
Yes, and it is.
You can hear it.
Fucking mean riff.
Yeah, it's almost like thrash, the
But the
riff,
beat is-
but not the beat,
Yeah,
and not the vocals.
yeah,
Vocals are more like traditional metal.
yes. So during this mid-'80s time, the metal was getting kind of more aggressive, because while we're listening to this, Metallica is putting out, Kill 'Em All and Master of Puppets, and Slayer's putting out Show No Mercy and Hell Awaits and Rain and Blood and all that stuff. Things were kind of getting more aggressive and faster, but then there was bands that were kind of taking it back to the Black Sabbath thing and doing like a more doom metal thing, like a band like Candlemass and this song called Demon's Gate.
An ancient passage surrounded by hedge. Scared I was, but with a hand on my cross,
Theatrics.
I went into the demon's gate.
These guys kind of slowed it down while everyone else was going faster. I believe they're from Sweden. So this is considered doom metal.
Feels related to prog rock, but much darker.
Yes.
Across the sticks, among the mists of Hades, a gate of stone marks the path to soul's damnation and hell's wrath.
The truth is, you hear more Ian Gillan in vocals as time goes on than you do Ozzy in some ways. Those high-pitched Ian Gillan things kind of stuck around with a lot of bands through the years, and they built on it, or it just became like the heavy metal kind of thing. Another band you could say that was doing this at this time when other bands were doing other things was a band that I think you worked with called Trouble. Early Trouble had doom elements, and more bands came and started there. A subgenre started through this stoner metal, some people like to call it.
Also, more of these bands, the splintering after the Iron Maiden and Judas Priest, it started getting more independent. Like Iron Maiden and Judas Priest were on major labels.
Yeah.
You saw them at an arena when they came to play. These other bands were more like
Roadrunner, Metal
more
Blade.
like independent labels, and it was almost more of a punk rock aesthetic, even though it was metal.
It was underground.
It was
Still
underground
underground.
music. Yeah.
A lot of these bands I would either find because I liked the album cover, or the guy at the record store knew what I liked and he would be like, check this out. It wasn't from mass marketing or
MTV or anything like that.
Headbangers Ball. At that time, you would find some bands that
Cool stuff.
would
Yeah.
play on Headbangers Ball that would only be played like after midnight on Headbangers Ball, though it wasn't in the regular rotation of MTV. At that time, the regular rotation of MTV was like the glam bands and the
Guns N' Roses.
Yeah, the hair bands, Motley Crue. Look, man, early Motley Crue is, you could say, very influential too, or like Shout at the Devil era Motley Crue. There was some heaviness to that. It wasn't all bubblegum. It wasn't, there was, the riffs were heavy. The imagery was satanic and kind of dark. I remember when I was a kid, I had the Motley Crue cassette, and in the back of the cassette, it had written, if you play this record backwards, it plays Satan. I don't know, it plays backward messenger. They purposely wrote that because they wanted, once again, satanic kayfabe. So, as a 7, 8-year-old kid, I was like, oh, wow, this is something that, I got to hide from my mom. I don't want her to read that, At this same time, though, you had more aggressive stuff that was a precursor to thrash.
What would be an example of that?
I wouldn't consider Discharge a heavy metal band, but Discharge definitely played influenced thrash music. So a song like this came out in the early 80s. Discharge, Drunk with Power. Heavy for that time, man. Like, you would sit there and think, how are they doing this while all these other bands are doing that?
It's less music. It's more assault.
It's a repetitive riff. It's mesmerizing in some ways. It stays the same. Every song, he has the same vocal approach. It's a lot of the same vibe. This takes like the Ramones and all but takes it to this other place. Such an original band. It baffles me on how are they doing this at this time? They formed in the late 70s. And this was probably early 80s. If you heard this at that time, you would be like, what is this?
Yeah, still now it sounds insane.
Yeah, it's aggressive.
Bands like the Bad Brains and Discharge definitely took it to a whole new level
of intensity.
Yes. And
that
speed.
Still feels intense now. You had these bands coming out in the early 80s that were not necessarily metal.
But the same metal kids might hear those, and it might be one of the influences. For sure on Slayer,
yeah,
there was the influence of, in addition to Iron Maiden and Judas Priest, clearly the extreme punk rock was part of the...
Well, they were fusing this with Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, Merciful Fate, and they were fusing the music and the riffs of that, but the intensity of this. But for me, in punk rock, you have MC5 and the Stooges, right?
Yep.
You could say are the
precursors
to the Ramones and all that stuff. In extreme metal world, for me, sure, Discharge was a player in that, but you can't deny Motorhead. heavy as fuck, man. Speed, because he was on speed. So. You can put Discharge in this. You would like bill them on the same gig and it would make sense. The intensity of it was there, even though they probably wouldn't consider themselves in the same genre or whatever, but the vocals, he's not singing, he's got this, same like the Discharge guy. I think at the time, metal and punk people, like the metal kids didn't really listen to punk and the punk kids didn't really listen to metal, but there was some bands that they could agree on, and Motorhead was one of them.
Everyone liked Motorhead.
Yeah.
Most people in metal, if they knew about them, loved them, but they were a little more underground than the above ground metal stuff.
Yeah. Like we said, MC5 and the Stooges, Motorhead, and Venom. Venom is a big deal.
Okay.
In extreme music, influential on thrash, influential on black metal. They named black metal. The album was called Black Metal.
Really?
And the vocals of Venom, I remember Tom's brother, John, was my guitar tech for a long time. And he would tell me that when Slayer started, they wanted to hear Tom sing more like Venom.
Wow.
And you hear it in early Slayer, Show No Mercy era, really. You hear a lot of that Venom in Slayer. But this is a song called Black Metal by Venom. And also the production, the speed. This and a couple other bands were considered the first wave of black metal, because black metal has another act coming in the early 90s, which is my favorite part of our story. I love black metal music. You could say black metal music got its name from that song, but if you want to hear how its influence on Slayer, this could have very well been a Venom song. Same kind of beat, right? Black metal.
Thrash beat.
Blasting our way through the boundaries of hell. No one can stop us tonight. We take down the world with hatred and style. Mayhem the reason we fight. Surviving the slaughters and killings we've lost. Then we return from the dead. Attacking once more now with twice as much strength. We counter then move on ahead.
But you can hear how this came from Venom.
The thing that this has that Venom doesn't is Dave Lombardo.
Yeah.
And the thing about Dave Lombardo is no matter how fast it gets, it's always groovy.
Yeah.
It never sounds like it's
Yeah.
always swinging.
I got a chance to once jam with Dave.
And could you feel it?
Dave is a different kind of drummer, man.
Totally different.
You can play one riff, and Dave will change what he's playing, and he will change your riff. The story with that is we were playing the Whiskey once. Dave was in our mosh pit,
That's so cool.
and we had never met him before. And we were just playing, and I kind of was like, dude, that's Dave Lombardo in the fucking mosh pit. And I was like, oh, we have to meet him. We met him afterwards, and my first thing was like, dude, you got to come to our I was like, I got to play with Dave Lombardo.
Yeah.
And he came. He came to our studio like a week later or something like that. I don't know if he remembers this, but I do. It was great.
I'm sure he does.
And we didn't, it wasn't even like at first we weren't playing songs. I was just like riffing, just jamming, just free jamming, which a lot of metal guys can't do, you know? And he just free jam, and it was just like going from one thing to another. But one thing I noticed was like, I could just sit there and play a riff, and this guy was changing the things he was playing, and I didn't have to change anything, but he was just changing the vibe of the riff.
Yeah, it made like the riff into 3 parts without changing the riff.
Yeah, without doing anything. So the hype on Dave is definitely well deserved.
Yeah. For me, it's like that feel
Yeah.
of it's groovy. And most drummers, the faster you get, the less groovy it gets. It gets more stiff, more straight.
Yeah.
But Dave's always swinging.
No, he's
tempo.
special. He's a special drummer.
I always felt like that's what separated Slayer from all the other speed metal bands, was just the way Dave played. I loved, obviously, the songwriting in Slayer regardless, but the feel of it was always what drew me energetically to Slayer. The groove.
Yeah, his fills, the fills that he would play on later albums, like that was kind of very straightforward, raw Slayer.
Yeah.
I'm kind of playing these albums from these bands that some of these bands changed along the way, but I'm playing their early versions of this band. Like I just played that song from Slayer because I wanted to set that song up with the Venom.
Yeah, so you see the connection.
So you can see the connection of how Venom inspired that.
Yes.
So I see Venom being an influence on Slayer when I hear that sound, but then I hear Motorhead being a key influence for Metallica and making that Motorhead drive with more of the metal kind of riffs and early Metallica, well, Motor Breath. You can't fuck with early Metallica. I mean, it is what it is. Motorhead drive, you know?
Living and dying, laughing and crying. Once you have seen it, you'll never be the same. Life in the past is just how it seems. Hard and heavy is beauty in me. Moonshine breath, that's how I live my life. I can't take it any other way. Moonshine breath, sign of living past. It's going to take your breath away. Stop for nothing, it's full speed or nothing. I'm taking down, you know, whatever's in my way. Getting your pieces, shooting the line, sending the shivers up and down my spine. Moonshine breath, that's how I live my life. I can't take it any other way. Moonshine breath, sign of living fast. This is going to take your breath away.
what is this, 82, 83? Heavy as fuck. Anyone who heard this for the first time at that time was blown away. Or it was too heavy for them. Like some people wouldn't get it because it's too fast, too crazy.
What I hear different about that than Motorhead, let's say, is there's a technical proficiency.
Yes.
Whereas Motorhead, it's superpower slur.
Yeah. Distorted bass.
Yeah. But James's
riffing,
strumming, really
tight.
It's so tight. And that's very different than whatever punk rock roots they might have.
Yeah.
Punk rock rarely sounds technically tight. It's just a different thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the skipping also, it's like, it's not just straight fast. It's
not open chords either. It's muted guitars. People call the genre junt now, which I don't really like that.
Junt?
Junt, because if the guitar goes junt, it's like a whole thing. That's after my time, to be honest. Like it's
junt metal?
Yeah, younger metalheads have like, bands they call junt. But it's got the junt. But you also have to think of the guitar tone was more of compressed kind of guitar tone. It wasn't your regular.
It's more percussive, really.
Yeah. It's not that rock tone anymore. That starts becoming the heavy metal tone. So when you mute your guitars, there's this like bass behind it. There's this tightness behind it. You start seeing that at this time.
Do you remember when you first heard Metallica?
I remember exactly where I was, but I didn't know that it was Metallica. Some kids in a parking lot when we were on a trip to Lake Arrowhead, and I heard faster in my head out of their car coming up. And I was like into metal, but I was like, what is this song? Faster. I didn't know they were saying master. And then it wasn't until I ran into the cassette and accidentally played the song, and I was like, oh my God, it's that faster, but there's the master.
Tetragrammaton is a podcast. Tetragrammaton is a website. Tetragrammaton is a whole world of knowledge.
What may fall within the sphere of Tetragrammaton? Counterculture? Tetragrammaton. Sacred geometry? Tetragrammaton. The avant-garde? Tetragrammaton. Generative art? Tetragrammaton. The tarot? Tetragrammaton. Out-of-print music? Tetragrammaton. Biodynamics? Tetragrammaton. Graphic design? Tetragrammaton. Mythology and magic? Tetragrammaton. Obscure film? Tetragrammaton. Beach culture? Tetragrammaton. Esoteric lectures? Tetragrammaton. Off-the-grid living? Tetragrammaton. Alt spirituality? Tetragrammaton. The canon of fine objects? Tetragrammaton. Muscle cars? Tetragrammaton. Ancient wisdom for a new age. Upon entering, experience the artwork of the day. Take a breath and see where you are drawn.